Welcome back to Mountain View Gardens and to my back porch where I love to do my cooking, or at least my prep work, in the summertime and in the early fall like it is right now. And as promised, I'm going to show you how I make my cherry tomato sauce. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to make this sauce, but I'm also going to work with some eggplants and peppers to roast those that will then go in at the very end. And we'll put this over pasta and it's going to be perfect. So this is a pretty easy thing to do. Now, people think that you can't do much with cherry tomatoes, but cherry tomatoes actually make a fantastic sauce because they tend to be really, really, really sweet. You don't have to do much except to wash them. So let's take a look at what we need to make this sauce. Now, to make a tomato sauce, you need tomatoes, and this is about 3.5 pounds of cherry tomatoes, which I picked from my garden. How many cups is that? I think that's about 4 to maybe 6 cups of cherry tomatoes. These are teeny tiny. You don't have to do anything other than just take the tops off, which I didn't do on that one, and give them a wash. I'm going to use, yes, I'm serious, half of a garlic, a whole head of garlic, half of a head of garlic peeled. I have 1 onion chopped. I have 2 red peppers, 3 eggplants, 1 jalapeno pepper, some basil, olive oil, salt, and pepper as usual. Secret ingredients, a little bit of honey. Okay, super secret ingredient, a little bit of nutmeg. Yes, I said honey and nutmeg. We're not going to use a lot, but we're just going to infuse these tomatoes with a little bit of something extra to give them a little bit of oomph. We're also going to need basil. So the first thing we're going to do is saute the onions and then add in the tomatoes. Simultaneously, I'm going to chop up the eggplant and the peppers, and I'm going to roast those in some olive oil and salt and pepper and a little bit of nutmeg. First things first, we're just going to chop up those peppers, and I'm going to throw them onto my baking sheet. You can grease your baking sheet, oil your baking sheet if you wish. I'm using parchment paper just as a liner. Next thing, let's just chop up those little eggplants. I have 3 small little fingers eggplants. You can really use any kind of eggplant you want. Here's my baking sheet with all my good stuff on it, and I'm going to throw these peeled whole garlics, cloves. They have been peeled, but it's 1/2 of a head of garlic. Yep, that's a lot of garlic. We're going to throw a little bit of olive oil over the top of these. We can move them around and coat them a little bit. Add in some salt. Add in some pepper. A tiny little bit of nutmeg. Sprinkled ever so slightly over the top. You don't need a lot. This is just to give it a little. We're going to roast this at 400 for about 20 minutes. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and saute our onions, and then for about 10 minutes and add our tomatoes into it. I have coated the bottom of the pan with olive oil, a generous layer of olive oil. The pan is now hot, and I'm going to pour in the onions. And we're just going to saute these over on medium heat for about 10 minutes until they're nice and soft. Are you ready for secret ingredient number 1? It's going to be the honey. Now, I have this over very low heat at this point. It's been cooking for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to put a big heaping spoonful of honey. Mary Poppins said it helped the medicine go down, but I say it helps the onions brighten up a little bit. Stir that in and cook it for a couple more minutes over very low heat. You don't want the honey to burn. And you're going to add in the tomatoes. You're going to cook these until they're all broken up, and then we'll puree them. We're stirring it up a little bit. I'm turning up the heat just a hair, and I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup of white wine. I'm going to add the white wine into the tomatoes. Turn up the heat just a little, and this is going to start to boil, and then this will all sort of cook down. I think it's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes. So that is cooking for about 20 minutes. The roasting vegetables will finish up in about 10 minutes or 8 minutes or so. Then we'll pull those aside. In the meantime, I'm cutting up some basil, and I'm going to very carefully slice up that jalapeno pepper. That will be added in a little bit. All right, the peppers and eggplants are out of the oven. I have chopped up the basil and the hot pepper. What I'm going to do now is take the hot pepper and put it into the tomato mixture and let that cook a good another 10 to 15 minutes. All right, see how this has been cooking for about 12 minutes now, and it's starting to break down. The great thing about cherry tomatoes is they break down really quickly. It's going to be a nice, thick, rich sauce. This sauce is going to have a bit of a sweet, spicy flavor to it. The jalapeno pepper is going to give it the spice. That honey and the cherry tomatoes is going to give it that sweet. The nutmeg is going to give it that little bit of nuance, and the basil is going to pull it all together at the end. This has now cooled for a couple of minutes. Notice I have my apron on because it splatters. This cooked for about a total of 30 minutes, and see how thick it is already? All we have to do is puree it. You can do it with an immersion blender, a regular blender, a food processor. Ah, perfect. Let's taste it. Oh my God. It is sweet and spicy. So good. I'm going to add a little bit of salt because in a way it's almost too sweet for what I want, but it's so good. In this sauce, what you want is a real melding of all sorts of different flavors. You want sweet, you want a little bit of spice, you want a little salt, and you just want that flavor burst of tomato to go pow. And that's going to happen. So I'm simmering that for about 5 minutes. And then I'll add my roasted vegetables in, and we'll serve it over pasta. It'll be perfect. Now here we have the roasted vegetables coming in at the very last minute. Stir it on in. And right before serving, we're going to add that luscious basil. Stir it into the pot. Because this is hot, it will melt and it will be, oh, so good. Now let's serve it up. Bon appetit, y'all. Oh yeah. This ain't your ordinary sauce.
That's so.